Welcome to the weekly program Belahdan, a show with an accent for those without one. We're talking now about Egypt 4 years after the revolution. Now, military is back in control, a police state. General El-Sisi, the champion of war on terrorism, now has a free hand in prison, execution, kidnapping. 45,000 people are in detention. One of them is my nephew, a young, sweet college student, 18 years old, was kidnapped from Nada Square on the day of the sit-down that was crushed by the Sisi forces. 1,000 people, almost, by very conservative estimate, were killed within 6 hours, the biggest massacre Egypt has witnessed for a long time. What's becoming of Egypt? Sisi went to Germany last week, and he would try to convince the West he is their man. He's the one who is gonna protect the region from extremists, ISIL, Qaeda, and headed by the Muslim Brotherhood. What's becoming of Egypt is topic today. We have here Professor Mohamad Elmasry. He is assistant professor of Department of Communication, University of North Alabama. We have him before. He's been following events in Egypt. And welcome to Belahdan, Professor Elmasry. You know, I haven't figured out forget about the politics, the military is back, but the complicity of General Sisi, that he comes across like the Sufi, the faithful president, the general president, the conqueror, the savior of Egypt. So many persons, I think, he's been adapting. He's been saying statements, just outrageous statement. Last time he was talking to German American. No, what I mean?
German Egyptians.
Egyptian. He tell him he has this talent of, or God sent them. He has this skill to figure out what's right, what's wrong. He doesn't believe in due process. He doesn't believe in what are the institutions. It's just the fact that he likes something, or does something. He has. So can you talk us through what's going on in his mind? What kind of a general? What kind of a dictator he is?
That's a complex question.
I know, I'm out of your area.
Yeah, I'm a media scholar and a political scientist. I'm not a psychologist, but I agree with you. I mean, you've made an astute observation. I mean, if you look at his speeches, and if you look at some of the test-ribet, the leaks, which have been authenticated, I mean, he said some pretty amazing things. I mean, this is a man who has been dreaming, according to one of the leaks that's been authenticated. He has been dreaming for some time. This is years and years and years of becoming the president of Egypt. That was sort of a lifelong dream that he had. And he goes on to say that his dreams come true. He believes that his dreams, when he dreams something, it comes true. Recently he made a statement, he sort of slapping himself on the back, saying that I've been right about everything, to the extent that all of the foreign powers are now coming to me for insights and advice. And he even said that philosophers are coming to him to learn from him.
Let's stop there.
Yeah.
When he's saying this, you have an audience. You have people, Egyptians living in Germany, they travel, they've seen things. When he is saying this to the audience, what is going in his mind, really? Does he really believe in this?
It's a good question.
It comes like a genuine statement, or it's just somebody doesn't really, he's a dictator, he can say anything.
Yeah, I mean, in Egyptian Arabic we say, oh, musadda nafsu. Yeah. I mean, he's believing himself. I mean, he's been hyped up. You have to understand, I mean, he has a cult-like following in Egypt. I mean, of course, as I've mentioned, and as I mentioned last time I was on your show, Egypt is a divided society. Roughly half of the people support him. Roughly half of the people are opposed to him and opposed to the new political order. But the people that do support him, I mean, we're talking about, they have Sisi chocolates, Sisi cupcakes, Sisi statues. memorabilia, keychains, caps, T-shirts. He has a cult-like following. I mean, he's listening. He has people in his ear constantly telling him that he is a hero, that he is a savior, that he rescued Egypt. So does he really believe all of these things? I don't know. He may.
All those people who cult-like follow, do they really... Is this really that they believe in him, or they just afraid of the brotherhood, or they are it is wishful thinking? Like what happened, Nasser, disaster, Naksa, in 6 hours, military was gone.
Yeah.
And people went after him, say, come and save us.
I mean,
it seems like...
there are different groups. I mean, there are different camps inside of Egypt, right? I mean, you have some people who are hyper-nationalists in Egypt that are so devoted to the military, the Egyptian military. I mean, we talk about patriotism, but it's a really sort of extreme form of patriotism, where they believe that the military, the Egyptian military, can do no wrong. Anything that is good...
They've done everything wrong. What do you kind of do wrong? They didn't want him. What they mean by that? I don't understand. I don't want to be hard on the military. I'm talking about it's me and us, your son, your brother, and all the other enemy. I'm talking about the general.
Yeah, I mean
the billionaires.
Yeah, no, military. I mean, if you look at it from a purely political science perspective, military rule in Egypt has been pretty disastrous. They've been extremely inefficient. The political scientists and political economists that write about Egypt have been writing for decades about, quote, the Egyptian inefficiency crisis. It is an ezma, it is a crisis of inefficiency. That has been brought on largely by the military. They do everything. I mean, they are the father figure of Egyptian society. They own furniture businesses. They manufacture bottled water. They own gas stations. They own hotels and resorts. They own, estimates suggest, up to 40%. They control up to 40% of the Egyptian economy. There's no reasonable person, I don't think, that would, who understands the way politics and modern society and economics are supposed to work. I don't think there are very many reasonable people who would say that that's a good thing. But the hyper-nationalists believe that these are things, in their favor. Yeah, these are points earned by the military. They say, look at the highway that they just built. It's so beautiful. Look at the best gas station is Benzinat al-Wataniya. One of the gas stations that the military owns. Yeah, or whatever. So I mean, it's a hyper nationalist fervor. They believe in the military. We've seen similar things in other societies. It's not necessarily unique to Egypt. In many ways, it's very scary because people are willing to support their military leaders pretty much blindly, to the extent that, like you mentioned in your introduction, you have more than 40,000 people arrested, upwards of a couple of thousand people, probably, if not more, killed, right? And mostly in just cold blood, unarmed people just shot dead by the military and the police. You have mass death sentences, which have just, I mean, Egypt has become a laughingstock with these mass death sentences. I mean, they round people up into the courtroom. I mean, you have to imagine this. They basically put a bunch of names on a list, and they accuse and convict all of the people, up to 600 people in one of the trials, for killing one person, right? I mean, it's really the theater of the absurd. But many people believe in Sisi. They believe that the military can do no wrong and that they have Egypt's best interests at heart. So that's part of the cult-like following. There are other people, as you said, that just, probably just purely ignorant. They have wishful thinking. They think that, things will get better. And there are other people who have switched. I mean, there are many people. I personally know many people who have jumped off the bandwagon, so to speak. I mean, they were supportive of the new political order initially in the summer of 2013, and then they saw what was happening, that political competition had been completely eliminated. You have this campaign of eliminationism, to borrow a phrase from a history book that was written by a famous historian in the context of Nazi Germany. But you have a campaign of eliminationism ongoing in Egypt, and so people have been terrified, and they've jumped off the bandwagon. So it would be interesting. What would be interesting is if Pew or Zogby, if one of these research centers was allowed access to Egypt right now, it would be very interesting to look at the public opinion data.
Well, I just read something in one of those government newspapers, the Masrawi.
Oh, yeah. That they have 90% support.
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah, but I mean, this is not scientific. This is an organ.
Ask 10 people.
What's that?
They say 9 out of 10. Did they ask more than 10 people?
Well, they say they asked. I read the
Yeah.
results. I mean, this is.
I didn't know the sample and how they.
Yeah, no, it's not scientific. They said that they talked with 8,500 people, which is a very large sample, and they claim that 90% of Egyptians support El-Sisi and think he's doing a good job. I mean, the number is completely absurd. It contradicts every piece of empirical data that we have about Egypt.
In common sense, I mean, this sounds like an election result more than anything else. What's about the 90% that the Egyptian cannot live with?
Yeah, well, this is consistent. I wrote an article about a year ago about the quantitative justification for the coup and for the support that Sisi has. I mean, the numbers that you hear quoted, I mean, it's pretty remarkable, right?
It's an urban legend.
Right. Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean, but people believe. I mean, I have many, friends and family in Egypt that believe that there were 40 to 50 million people protesting against Mohamad Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood on July 3rd, 2013.
Photoshop revolution.
Well, you said it, not me. But the idea that there were. I mean, you just stop and think about that for a minute. I mean. There are people that I know personally, these are educated people, that believe that there were 30 million people protesting in Cairo alone. The population of Cairo is only 18 million. So, I mean, you just have to wrap your head. I was in Cairo on the day of July 3rd. I went to the mall. I mean, it was packed. I mean, there was traffic jams. I mean, there were no more than, I mean, if we were going to be very generous, 500,000 or 600,000 people protesting.
Scientifically can actually.
Oh yeah, there's a science. There's a science called crowd sizing, and one of the leading experts has weighed in on this. Clark McPhail at the University of Illinois. It's not possible to fit several million people in Tahrir Square. I mean, we're in Minneapolis. The old Metrodome, which has now been demolished because they're building a new stadium. The Metrodome. I actually looked this up. I got the measurements. The Metrodome was larger than Tahrir Square. So do you think it would be possible to fit several million people inside the Metrodome? This is a stadium that seated 65,000 people at maximum capacity, right? Even if you were to put people on the field, maybe you could get a couple 100,000, but you can't get 7-8 million people in the Metrodome. But this is what the Egyptian...
well, I'm sure it's not a rational thing. When a cult does not need stats or does not need science, it needs just belief system.
Sure.
I mean, let's talk about our friends here and Mohammed Sultan, which, as an Egyptian American, it comes home. Kind of. Here is a guy been in jail for 2 years. Almost, right. Hunger strike for 400 days, and for just doing his job.
Right.
Right. That's is doing his job, reporting about events in Egypt. Then
it's not the only one. What we've seen is a pattern. Pretty much all of the people that have been arrested in Egypt who possess dual citizenship, either Canadian or American or Australian or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you had Mohammed Sultan, you had Peter Gresta, you had Mohammed Fahmy. They either had sole foreign citizenship or dual citizenship. They've been let go. The Egyptians, the people that have only an Egyptian passport, they continue to languish in jails.